Hey friends, what's going on? Thank you so much for being here as always. If you're new to the channel, welcome, super glad you're here. Let's go ahead and get straight into the video. So in today's video, I'm talking about production and how to ultimately keep it simple. I think, again, similar to mixing, we can tend to kind of convolute the process of production. By the way, if you haven't already seen my mixing Keep It Simple video, you can check it out right here. And if you're not subscribed yet, I would encourage you to do so because I'm gonna drop a part 2 to this video where we're jumping in the box and checking out some actual examples and demonstrations of how you can apply this to your own songs. So, production. I think it's super helpful to kind of come up with a sort of system, just kind of streamlines the entire process. That way you're not always in your head and you're kind of following some standard procedure for the songs that you make. This is kind of my recommendation for a process and a workflow that you can use. But of course, like anything artistic, there's not a one-size-fits-all solution. There's not only one way to do things. So in my workflow, one of the very first things that I always do is start with the arrangement. Now, I personally would classify this as like a pre-production type of thing. A lot of the time, I work out all of this stuff before I ever even open up my DAW. Most of the time. So a lot of that looks like sitting down with an acoustic guitar or a piano and kind of figuring out things like chord progressions in each part of the song. Also like literally the arrangement of the song. Are we going verse, pre-chorus, chorus? Are we doing verse 1, verse 2, chorus, and on, so on and so forth. So the actual structure of the song as well. And also while I'm working on building out the song, I'll kind of start gathering some ideas of, okay, in the chorus, maybe we can do like double tracked lead vocals, or we could do, hard panned left, right acoustic guitars, that kind of thing. So that I'm already kind of coming into the song when I do open up the DAW with some sort of plan ahead of time already. Another thing that's super important in this kind of pre-production phase is just figuring out where the energy of the song is. Like, what are you gonna do acoustically on your instrument that's going to then translate to the song? Like, I think approaching the song production from kind of the songwriting standpoint helps a lot. And I've said this on the channel before, I'm gonna say it probably dozens more times, but if you don't have a great song already and a solid arrangement and all those things, then like you can try to throw a lot of production at it and it's not gonna make it any better. Honestly, a lot of the time you're going to be fighting the song and it might actually make the song worse. So if you can sit down with your guitar, I don't know why, if you can sit down with your guitar or your piano and already make a great sounding song with a really strong melody, strong lyrics, super strong hook, strong rhythm, all of these things, that's gonna make producing the song infinitely better. And if you're not kind of dancing to it already, it's not getting stuck in your head already, then just stay in the songwriting process and arrangement process until you have something that's good, until you have something that you actually enjoy. Because frankly, you're gonna be listening to the song a lot. Like, it's worth actually liking the song, liking the arrangement and all that kind of stuff before you get into the DAW. And by the way, that doesn't mean that you're locked into what you come up with on your instrument. That just means you have a really strong foundation. Like I said, there's no one way to do this. So sometimes instead of sitting down with a guitar or piano, it might be better to actually just jump into the DAW and, record something like a vocal chop or build out a really quick loop or something that you can kind of top line over and write to. I've done that before too, and I think it's really helpful. So it kind of just depends on the situation. All right, so the second thing is finding really good reference tracks. That's kind of what I do as a second step of the process. It kind of goes hand in hand with the first part of the process, but this is super important to help kind of inform more so the direction you want to go with for production. So almost every single time that I am listening to reference tracks, I have a pen and a paper in my hands. Like, I literally prefer to actually physically write down the notes for all the different reference tracks before I actually approach the production. Now, do you have to do that? Of course not. Like, you can just type out notes on your phone or on your laptop or take mental notes if you want to. But I kind of find for me that just having that physical, notepad and pen, for one, it helps me disconnect from screens, and I'm in front of screens literally all the time. And it also makes me feel more connected to the song and kind of be more integrated into the process. So that's for me. Do something that works for you. But be really intentional about finding reference tracks that kind of help just put your mind in the direction of what you want the final product of your song to sound like. Now, kind of a controversial take here. I personally think that in this part of the process, it's actually acceptable and probably beneficial in a lot of cases to use AI. Now, let me give you kind of an aside with that, because I bet some of you guys are going to be triggered. I don't love the idea of AI in music, but I definitely think there's a little bit of utility to using it as a workflow tool. The reality is that for us as producers, if we're making music for ourselves or with other artists, it takes a long time to kind of audition different ideas, to try different drum loops, to try different guitar riffs, to try blah, 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 blah. And yes, of course, there are things like Splice that help kind of expedite that process. But you can also go into something like Suno and say, hey, Suno, I'm working on a song that's kind of inspired by Tate McRae. I would like something that's similar to that with blah, 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 blah. I need 5 ideas. And it'll generate 5 things that can kind of inform the direction you want to go with the song. It might alter the melody, it might alter the chord structure, it might do other things that can inspire creativity in your brain. And that's super important because time really is of the essence. And it might honestly give you something better than what you initially thought. Now, I'm not saying that you should just drag and drop those stems and then let that be the song, because frankly, I still think AI sucks and sounds terrible, but it can at least give you some ideas for different lead guitar lines, different drum rhythms, and so on and so forth. I think it really can inspire a lot of ideas in the same way that a reference track would. So, take that with a grain of salt. I don't do this very often at all, but when I do, I think there's a lot of utility in it. So just an idea. And also, sometimes as producers, when we're forcing the process of trying to come up with ideas, it can really bog down the session. And so I think a lot of the time it can help just get a fresh perspective of, oh, here's an idea that I literally would not have thought of at all before. So try things, just try it. Like, what do you have to lose? You know what I mean? And maybe also take the ideas that Suno spits out and make them yourself, because Suno sounds terrible. All right, the third step of the process is to build the base of the song, which I would say would be the rhythm section. So thinking drums, bass guitar, and electric guitars. Between these 3 instruments, you kind of have the bread and butter of the song. You kind of have the skeleton of the track. So if you can kind of sit down after that and just go through the entire song and track drums for the length of the song, track bass guitar for the duration of the song, and then track electric guitars for the duration of the song, you're already getting in that 50% there kind of space. And that's really helpful. That's like a finished, pretty official demo. You have the overall idea of the song essentially fleshed out. And from then on, the rest of the production is kind of going to be informed by the decisions you make at this point. Step 4 is where I would typically record a scratch vocal. At this point, you have enough sonic information in your DAW to which you can record a scratch vocal to. Now, I say scratch vocal because this is just something really quick that you could throw down, to which you can kind of use as a point of reference for other creative decisions you make in the production process. So one practical example is, say in the chorus, the lead vocal is singing some sort of melody that you want to do a call and response thing with a synth line or a lead guitar line. Or say you want to take part of that vocal and chop it up and turn that into the hook of the song or something like that. This is kind of the point in the song where you can take that scratch vocal and then kind of play with it and generate different types of ideas that will inform, just other parts of the song. Now with your workflow, it might work better to record a final lead vocal here. That's totally optional. If you want to, that's totally fine. For me, this is kind of just like hey, this is another layer of the foundation. Let's throw this down and then build around it and then come back and replace it later on. But again, to each their own. So this is just a suggestion. Try it, see if it works. And 5th and finally, this is where I would flesh out the production. So that involves everything from adding ear candy, adding additional synths, adding additional electric guitars, adding different perk things, adding all these kinds of things that build out the song. Think transitions, risers, impacts, doubles, harmonies, official, final, polished lead vocal, and all those kinds of things. That's kind of where I would go to next. That's where I typically go to next in my workflow. So after this part of the song, you essentially have a fully produced, polished song that's more or less ready to be sent to mix. This is kind of the part in the process where you're going to be kind of throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. Now, a quick pro tip that I've also said on this channel before, one thing that I would highly suggest in this phase, after you've thrown a ton of spaghetti at the wall, is just be kind of intentional. Not every single thing you throw at the wall needs to stick. Not everything you throw at the wall needs to make it into the final master. So with that being said, after you have all this other additional stuff in the track, before you send it off to mix or before you mix it yourself, one thing that I personally would suggest is playing the song through, say the chorus, the biggest part of the song, and go through and kind of mute out different tracks and see if you actually notice. Because we can kind of get wrapped up in this excitement of, oh, let's try this, oh, let's try this, oh, let's try this. And that's great, but it actually might be doing a little bit of harm to your song, and recording more tracks doesn't always equate to making a better sounding song or a more full production. So just keep that in mind. And if it's not sonically or, musically or rhythmically contributing to the song in the end, then just leave the tracks muted and then mix after that. Like, you're gonna thank me. Because a lot of the time, if there is just a ton of sonic information that, your lead vocal now has to cut through, or your lead guitars that you really love now have to cut through, or whatever, you're gonna have to do a lot more work in the mix to get things to sound the way you want to. So like, just be intentional in the recording and production side of things before you get to mix. It's gonna make it a lot easier on you if you're the mixing engineer, or on the mixing engineer you're hiring, if you're sending it off to be mixed by someone else. So friends, that's all that I have for you today in this video. I do hope that there is something that's beneficial, as far as workflow goes, and you find something that can enhance or add to your workflow. And if not, and I'm dumb, just let me know in the comments below. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. And if you want to support the channel more directly, of course you can do so through Patreon. Patreon is linked below in the description. I post all of my YouTube videos there a few days before they hit YouTube, ad-free. And I also post unreleased songs and demos, etc. of my own, and some of client projects with their permission, of course, and breakdowns of productions and mixes and things like that, and their full length that don't make it here on YouTube. So if that's something that you're interested in, then you can chuck a couple dollars at Patreon a month and get a lot more value and kind of join me along this ride as an artist and a producer. And fun fact also, before you click off, I'm working on my full-length debut album personally, and I'm doing breakdowns of all the songs and all the things over on my Patreon. And I'm gonna kind of like record it in real time. So if you wanna check it out and be a part of that, you can do so over on Patreon. Anyways, love you guys. Love you guys? Yeah, God bless you. Have an awesome day. See ya.